Alright, so those of you who keep up with my videos know that yesterday we talked about Game Informer's top 100 RPGs of all time. And for better or for worse, I thought the list was rather poor. Now here's the thing. God, I just got done eating a chicken sandwich and it's going to fuck my throat up the entire video. Here's the thing. With the top 100 RPGs of all time, you run into a lot of room for errors. The bigger the number, the more room for error you have. You're going to have entries like fucking Lost Odyssey at 96. Fuck you, Game Informer. And you're going to have issues where superfluous games wind up on the list, like Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild. These games are not RPGs. If you know what an RPG is, then you know that it is a role-playing game. It doesn't just mean, oh, there's skill trees, or oh, you can get some experience points. If Horizon Zero Dawn, which is actually featured right there, if Horizon Zero Dawn is an RPG, then Call of Duty is an RPG. Because when I play Call of Duty multiplayer, I level up. I get more points, and I'm able to get my level higher, and I'm able to get new goodies. Does that make Call of Duty an RPG? No. Then don't call other games RPGs that aren't RPGs. Alright? I'm so sick of this shit. There are games out there that have RPG mechanics. But that doesn't mean that they're RPGs. Okay? Do we have that cleared up now? So, yeah, this list was pretty much trash. So, I'm going to go over my top 30 RPGs in this video. You know, the other day when I actually threw it, it actually landed open to number 1 on their list, and it just kind of mocked me. But now it landed right. Anywho, before we start this list, I want to make two things abundantly clear. Number 1, this is just my personal opinion. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can shift stuff around in your head, whatever you want, but this is only my opinion. I don't think that these games necessarily are the definitive collection of these, top 30 RPGs. They just happen to be the ones that I own, and they happen to be the ones that I picked, and they happen to be in the order that I put them in. Number 2, like I said, these are games that I own. I can't very well hold up Super Mario in the 7 stars, because I don't own it. You can change that, by the way. But yeah, these are games that I own, so I'm not going to be holding up games that I don't actually possess. There are a few games that I'm sure a lot of you are going to be like, why isn't that on the list, Brett? I don't have a copy of it. So just keep that in mind. Number 1, my opinion. Number 2, games I actually own that I can hold up in the video. But I still think this is going to be a pretty damn good list, and I hope that you enjoy it. Before we get into the video, though, I want to say this. If you disagree with the video, or you feel that I missed some opportunities to put games on the list, then you have a huge comment section down below where you can toss out the games that you want to be on this type of list. If you want to make your own list, go ahead and put it down there. Top 5, top 10, top 30, whatever. Go ahead and put your own list of games down there that you think are the best RPGs you've ever played. Or, if you want to go one step further, this is me just offering this out there, make your own video, your top whatever number list of RPGs, and let me know about it, and I'll come watch it when it's uploaded, and then I'll share it with my friends. So this is just an opportunity for a little bit of camaraderie and community. If you want to make your own list of the top whatever RPGs, then let me know, and I'll be sure to tune into it. I can probably throw a few shout-outs out there to people, like different gamers and stuff, but I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. If you would like to, make your own list of what RPGs you think are the best. Let me know that it's getting uploaded, and I'll check it out. But right now, we're going to get into my list of the top 30 RPGs of all time. And again, it's just an opinion. So, we're going to start this list off with a game that I think has a really good fighting system. It has a very interesting story, and it has some neat characters. I'm not going to go in depth on every game that I hold up, so just keep that in mind or this list will be hours long. But first and foremost, we have The Legend of Legaia. I think this game is a very good RPG. It has a very robust fighting system, it has a very interesting story, and it's just a quaint little piece of history. If you've never played Legend of Legaia, I recommend you try it out. And again, Taylor, you're not getting this back, it's mine now, it's mine. And yes, I did actually put these in order. Next up we have XCOM, Enemy Within. The XCOM games are really fucking hard. Like, I've heard people, oh, Fire Emblem's difficult. Yeah, XCOM is as difficult as Fire Emblem in my opinion. But these games are also really, really good. And they have this robust tactical RPG nature to them. I think one of the things that we all do is we make our own squad, we name them after our friends, and then we see how horribly they can die in combat with aliens from another world. These games are great. If you've never played XCOM, you need to play XCOM, and I really recommend this version of it because you get all these extra goodies. If you only have an opportunity to play vanilla XCOM, that's fine. That game is still fantastic. And I'm not putting XCOM 2 on the list, but I recommend it as well for those of you who are on PS4 and Xbox One. Next up we have probably one of my favorite games of all time because it's on this list. Fallout 3. I really do love this game. I'm not an Elder Scrolls guy. I can already tell you there are not any Elder Scrolls games on this list. If I had to recommend one, it would be Morrowind. But I love the Fallout franchise, and I've always loved Fallout 3. I honestly wish that at one point they would remaster it, remake it, and put in iron sights and weapon mods and reputation, one of the few things from New Vegas that I thought was fantastic. But the story was not really why I played this game. It was for the exploration, the combat, and forging my own path. I considered myself more of a scrapper, a hunter, a trader. I would go out into the wastes, fight monsters, collect scrap, bring it back to Megaton, and trade with all the merchants. Forging my own path in this game was a lot of fun, and I can only imagine what they'll do with further installments in this Fallout franchise. I love Fallout 3, and if you haven't played it, I have to recommend you check it out. Next up, Dark Souls. Dark Souls is one of, if not the most exquisite experiences I've had in gaming. Not just because of its RPG D&D style, but also because of the difficulty to overcome and the exploration that I was able to take part in. I don't play these games just because, oh, they're hard and you can have bragging points on the internet. I play them because I like to explore the remnants of lost kingdoms, fight monsters, and uncover what happened. Uncover the truth behind your curse. I love this franchise, and if you haven't played any of the Dark Souls games, I can recommend any of them, even 2. I really think you should try this game because it's a beautiful game, it has beautiful themes, and it has a dark, decaying world that will brutalize you over and over and over again until you love it. Next up is Parasite Eve. This game is exquisite. Parasite Eve melds perfectly the RPG combat of Vagrant story with the Resident Evil style of exploration and horror. I think this game is lovely. From the design, the characterization, the rather weird story, but everything just coalesces together to form this perfect little game that has just such wonderful combat and horror tropes. I love it. If you've never played Parasite Eve, I can't help but recommend this one. If you have an opportunity to play the other games in the franchise, yes, even Third Birthday, I suggest you try it, even though Third Birthday is more of a shooter than an RPG. Next up we have a video game, Child of Light. Child of Light is probably one game that a lot of people don't, expect to show up on a list like this. But after having played this game, I find it to be just so beautiful, both in its design and its themes in place. Child of Light is a side-scrolling action-adventure RPG. It doesn't have hack-and-slash combat like I thought it would. I was honestly surprised because when I saw Child of Light, I thought it would be just a side-scrolling hack-and-slash Metroidvania-style game. And it actually has a robust turn-based RPG strategy style of combat to it. The thing with Child of Light that's a little different than other RPGs is that you have a 2-character party loadout, and you can swap out with other members of your party. For a while, I thought I was only stuck with the 2 I had, and I had no clue how to switch. During combat, you can actually switch. The gameplay is lovely, the music is exquisite, and I think the themes in place are really good at fleshing out the story at hand. I don't want to spoil the story for you, but it's a bit dark and a bit grim for something called Child of Light. Not to mention the fact that almost all of it is told through rhyme. And at first that was a little grating, but after a while it just forms this charm, and I can't get past how much I love this game. I'm still in the process of playing it, but I think this is a great RPG, and you need to check it out. Here's another title a lot of people probably wouldn't expect, but considering I put Parasite Eve on here, I had to mention this one, Koudelka. If you've never heard of this game, The way I can describe it is take Final Fantasy Tactics, take Resident Evil, and then smash them together real good and hard. Koudelka is fantastic. In my opinion, even more so than Parasite Eve. It melds the horror and exploration of Resident Evil with the tactical, and yes, I do mean tactical, style of RPG combat you would see in other games. If you've ever played Final Fantasy Tactics or Enchanted Arms or any of these games that allow you to move on a grid-like structure to attack your enemies, then you really need to check out Koudelka, because it has that same style of combat. The grid-based structures, the ranged and melee attacks, it's a fantastic game. I do recommend, though, if you're going to play Koudelka, be prepared, because if you miss one item, the final boss will one-shot you in a cutscene. And it's funny as hell. This game wasn't mentioned anywhere on Game Informer's list, and I think that's a crying shame. And while I do know one of my subscribers recently, yesterday, said some shit about this game, that doesn't detract from the fact that I love this title. Star Ocean Till the End of Time. I've never gotten an opportunity to play Star Ocean 1 or 2, and I hear that they are vastly superior to this one. But when it comes down to it, this is the one I own, and this is the one I love. Star Ocean is fantastic. Taking you to a breadth of different worlds, meeting numerous different characters, engaging in fast, frenetic, hack-and-slash style combat, and going on a story and an adventure that transcends not only space, but also reality. It's a fantastic little game that also has a pretty fourth wall breaking moment that mocks the nature of video games in and of themselves, and explains exactly what was going on throughout the game when you were traveling around. It's fantastic, and while some people didn't like the twist ending, I thought it was pretty fucking cool. So if you get a chance to check out Star Ocean Till the End of Time, I recommend you do, because it's just a great little adventure game. If you love D&D, you really need to try these games out, because Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance is another fantastic type of RPG. This one, of course, being top-down style and more hack and slash, it just reminds me so much of old D&D games, though. I love it. I love the characters, I love the combat, and I love the style of gameplay. There's not a whole lot of games these days that are top-down or isometric. I think that we need more of these types of games for gamers to enjoy these days. Everything is either, first person, third person, that sort of thing. But these top-down isometric games still have a place in my heart, and Baldur's Gate is probably one of the best when it comes down to this RPG style of hack and slash gameplay. One of my subscribers was disappointed that there were no Breath of Fire games on the Game Informer list. Yeah, I had to look. I almost said Breath of the Wild because I have Zelda on my mind. And no, Breath of the Wild is not an RPG. But I figured since I don't own but one Breath of Fire game, I'll throw it on this list. And that's Breath of Fire 3. I've only played a small portion of this game thus far, but I can see exactly why it is that people love these games. The combat style is very tactical, very strategic. The graphics are just beautiful. The sprites really bring to life this old school style of game. I myself mentioned in another video that I like the old school styles of games, the old school sprites. And when it comes down to it, I think this game beautifully encapsulates that graphic style. There's a lot of character, there's a lot of emotion, and plain and simple, it's just a really neat little game that I have to play more of. And while I would put Breath of Fire 2 on here because that's an actual great game, I don't have that one. So I'm going to put Breath of Fire 3 here, because it's a neat little game that I need to play more of. Speaking of neat games, Blue Dragon. If you have an Xbox 360, there are two RPGs that are obviously going to be on this list. This is one and another one's coming, that you really need to play. Both of them are backwards compatible. Every video. Both of them are backwards compatible with the Xbox One, and you can play them right now if you have an Xbox One. These games are fantastic. I shouldn't get ahead of myself. This game is fantastic. Blue Dragon perfectly combines the art style of Akira Toriyama with the RPG styles of, I want to say, a Dragon Quest game, because of course the other one that I thought of was Dragon Quest VIII. Is that on this list? Keep watching to find out. Blue Dragon is beautiful. It has a great story, has great characters, and the combat system is just fantastic. Not to mention the fact that it's got Akira Toriyama's art style with it. This game's amazing. And if you haven't played it and you have a 360, I really recommend you get a copy of it. This game was on that Game Informer list, and I think this game belongs on this list too. Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is classic, it's timeless. And some of you might be like, why aren't you holding up your cart? Because I've held that up in a bunch of videos. I'm holding this one up now. Number one, because I know my subscriber and my buddy Kevin will just go giddy over it. But also because it doesn't matter what version of Final Fantasy you're playing. Whether it's the NES original, whether it's the Origins remake, or whether it's the PSP port. When it comes down to it, if you're playing Final Fantasy, you're playing one of the greatest RPG experiences ever made. Also, one of the progenitors of a fantastic franchise that has several other entries on this list. Final Fantasy is classic. Final Fantasy is timeless. Final Fantasy is perfect. Well, you know, when you don't miss the target you're aiming at because your warrior already wiped it out. But I love Final Fantasy. Next up, I don't have the cases for these. And I say these even though they're one entry on my list, because I feel these games encapsulate part 1 and part 2 of a franchise. Much how when you play the Metro Redux, you feel like it's really the beginning and the ending of one perfect seamless game. I feel these games are just like that. And that is, of course, Golden Sun and Golden Sun A New Age. These games are great. I also have Dark Dawn, but I don't got a case for that either. Golden Sun games, they're fantastic. If you haven't played them, you really need to. The wonderful sprite graphics, the amazing music, and the combat system is just fantastic. They're a bit simplistic considering the system they were designed for, but that doesn't mean they're any less fantastic games to play. If you haven't played Golden Sun, I really recommend you check them out, because I love them. That's why I have them. I'm not going to put those there. That's going to fuck up the whole stack. Next up, Pro Jared's favorite, Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics is an odd entry in the franchise, given that it really threw a lot of gamers for a loop. A lot of gamers who have played the Final Fantasy series are used to, of course, the turn-based combat system. With Final Fantasy Tactics, however, you opened up the entire battlefield. You had tactics and strategy to engage your opponent. Moving on the grid, attacking enemies effectively, defending yourself effectively. All of these things were very new to gamers. And I'll be honest, while I'm not huge on the Tactics franchise like some people are, I can appreciate exactly what it did for Final Fantasy. And I agree with Pro Jared, we need more Final Fantasy Tactics. I like the tactical style of combat. I like using my mind. I like strategizing instead of just holding X and auto-attacking or flinging spells or summoning Ramua for the 17th time. I really enjoy these types of games. And if you haven't played Final Fantasy Tactics, I really can recommend this, whether it's the PlayStation version or the PSP version. Final Fantasy Tactics, great game. Some of these I forgot I put them on this in this stack ready for me to grab, so when I look at them I get a bunch of memories flooding back to me. And this game is amazing, plain and simple. I've told the story about this game before, how I missed out on it during my childhood because people were like, oh, that game's gay. If you like that game, you're gay. But as an adult, I don't give a fuck what people think, so I have to be honest and say Kingdom Hearts 2. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a beautiful experience. It melds together the fantasy of Final Fantasy with the Disney-esque, whimsical nature of those old animated films that are close to my childhood. It's just beautiful. It introduces new characters, introduces characters we love, and it has so many amazing moments where titans of imagination clash. And it's just beautiful. Now, a lot of you might probably think, you know, oh, Kingdom Hearts 1 is better, but I think Kingdom Hearts 2 improved on the formula in every way. The combat is better, the worlds are more robust, and while it does retread a bit of the same territory, I think that Kingdom Hearts 2 is a fantastic game. And Square Enix, Kingdom Hearts 3, hurry the fuck up, or else. I have this on the list again because while I haven't gotten a chance to play this game, and you can call me out, oh, why are you putting games on the list you ain't played? Shut up. Well, I haven't gotten a chance to play this game. I know what the gameplay style is like, and I've played versions of it on other systems. For instance, you guys already saw an entry earlier. The Baldur's Gate franchise. It's fantastic. That's all I'll say. Ah, yes, this game. Final Fantasy X, not X-2, Final Fantasy X is wonderful. The game itself was one of the first Final Fantasies to have voice acting. And when it comes down to it, that had its pros and its cons. But for the first time ever, those of us who had played this franchise were able to hear the voices of our heroes played out on the TV. And it was amazing. Hearing Auron still sends shivers down my spine. He's fantastic. Hearing Wakka still makes my ears bleed. And hearing Yuna's somber tone as she journeys on her pilgrimage to stop sin is still what I would consider a quintessential element of gaming history. If you've never played Final Fantasy X, there's a reason to play Final Fantasy X. It's because the game is fucking amazing. And while it does have its problems, let's not bring up the laughing scene, I think it's a great game and a great Final Fantasy. And I can't help but recommend it to any of you out there that haven't played it. Get a copy. You'll thank me. I think being at number 13 as opposed to being at number, 96, is a far better fate for this wonderful game. Lost Odyssey. The other reason that you should really check out the Xbox 360's library is this beautiful and quintessential game in any RPG fan's library. Lost Odyssey follows the story of Kaim Argonor, an immortal, and it follows his companions and their journey through this beautiful, whimsical world to stop an evil, evil man from his dastardly deeds. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it's great. The world is vast, the characters are intricate, the story at hand is beautiful but also somber. The tales that you could pick up, the 1,000 Years of Dreams, I believe it was called, are almost always an amazing read. And you wouldn't think reading too much in an RPG on 360 would be fantastic, but it is. And God, are some of them depressing. The story behind Kaim, his history, it's unpleasant. This game made me cry at one point. You'll know which point it is. And I think you should check it out. Because this game's beautiful. I love it. Play it. Another beautiful game with an amazing story, amazing combat, and a guy who literally runs around with his ass hanging out. Vagrant Story. If you haven't played this game, you're missing out because it's fantastic. The art style, the combat style, the world, the political intrigue, the cursed city, everything in Vagrant Story comes together to form a beautiful narrative. Another tortured protagonist and antagonists that are just as messed up. This game rocks, and I think you should check it out if you've never played it or even heard of it. Ah, yes. Dragon Age Origins. I already gushed about this game in my other video yesterday, but I have to be really honest in saying Dragon Age Origins is just fantastic. If you've never played it, you need to. And I feel that it is a spiritual successor to the Baldur's Gate series. That's one of the reasons why it appeals to me so. And that's one of the reasons why I hope to one day play the Baldur's Gate PC games that were sent to me by a subscriber. Dragon Age is fantastic. The story, the characters, fighting back against the Blight while also dealing with the political intrigue and the evil humans that want to fuck up the entire thing. It's great. I love this game. Please do try it out. Mass Effect. I first played Mass Effect years ago. And you can see what version it is. It's a Platinum's hit. I honestly found it randomly sitting in a bin in Sears for 20 bucks, brand new. And I was like, I should try that out. I've heard good things about it. Jade Empire and Knights of the Old Republic were BioWare games, and those were amazing. This is a third-person shooter RPG. I gotta check that out. And I fell in love with this game. The gameplay, the characters, the story that just won't quit, I love Mass Effect 1. There is something so perfect about this first game. A game that, in my opinion, was untainted. A game, in my opinion, that was just about all it could be. You need to play this game. And yes, while the combat has aged very poorly to the point where it's really fucking bad, the story, the dialogue, and the interactions will hook you from beginning to end. And while I did spoil one little bit, yes, we all know about the Reapers, and Sovereign is definitely a Reaper, no less are you going to be spoiled when you play the game. Because there's lots more to discover in this title. There's lots more to be intrigued by. There's lots more surprises to come. Mass Effect is fantastic. And you need to try it, if you haven't. Go ahead. It won't hurt you. This game, when it first came out, confused a lot of gamers. With the advent of certain installments in this franchise, people were expecting a certain thing from the next entry. And what they got was actually a harkening back to the classics of the franchise. What game am I talking about? Final Fantasy IX. A lot of people after 7 and 8 expected a lot more futuristic settings. But Final Fantasy IX is a love letter to the people who loved the franchise from the beginning. Final Fantasy IX is one of the last RPGs from Square Enix on the PlayStation. And I think it's a great swan song for the PlayStation. It is fantastic. I keep saying fantastic, because all these games are fantastic. But Final Fantasy IX in and of itself is just beautiful in its design, in its execution, its characters, and in its callbacks to the franchise. Well, with people like Vivi, who is clearly a black mage, we really need more RPGs like this. RPGs that don't just branch out into the future with their game mechanics, but also harken back to the past. With its reintroduction of the 4-character party, with its with its callbacks to the old franchise, and with its simpler tones that harken back to the days of fantasy, dragons, and magic, I think that Final Fantasy IX is just a wonderful entry in the franchise. While it may not have been appreciated by gamers back then who were new to the series, it was definitely appreciated by those of us who have been playing these games for a long time and love them. I love Final Fantasy IX, and if you've never played it, you need to play it. Let's be honest, you need to play every single one of these games on this list, because they're all fucking fantastic. A lot of people haven't been able to play this game because of the fact that it is exclusive to a system that a lot of people may not have owned. But I actually had a GameCube when I was little. And this game was sent to me by a buddy, and I played it, and it's so awesome! Baten Kaitos. I can't remember the subtitle, so I'm going to look down and see what the subtitle is. Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean. Baten Kaitos is an unusual RPG. We've seen a lot of RPGs that have the floating sky cities and things like that, but Baten Kaitos has that as well. And it's a bit different. Baten Kaitos takes place in a world in the clouds, a world that has risen from the cursed earth. Characters in this series can have wings. Characters in this series, fly from island to island. And it's just such a lovely game. You start as a character who has one wing and one mechanical wing. You don't know exactly what happened to him at first, but as the story progresses, you learn about who he is. You learn about the god of this world. You learn about the Great War, and you learn about the evil empire. And this game is just fantastic. I can't tell you everything about it because I don't want to spoil it, but it's awesome. And when this guy gets his wings, like both of them, things get real. You'll see what I mean if you play it. I've beaten this game, and I really need to replay it at some point because it's just fantastic. Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings, and the Lost Ocean. This stack over here is getting pretty high. Speaking of games that have floating cities in the sky, Skies of Arcadia. This game was originally released on the Dreamcast, but one of my friends gave me the GameCube version. And this game's spectacular. Not only is it an amazing RPG, with, of course, the exact same things that I've mentioned in every other one of these entries, with great characters, great story, great RPG combat, it also has fucking pirate sky battles. You battle in ships in the sky. That's cool. Play it. if you can find a copy of it. I know this one's a little bit rarer than some of the others, but God, is it worth it. Oh, we've had the stack fall over. Ah! Ah, yes, this next entry. I want to clear up any confusion that may have been on the last video. While I haven't played the PSP version of this game, I have played this game before, in case anybody's, wondering. I have played it because I have it on the, well, it might be down here now. I have it on the PlayStation, but I haven't played the PSP remake. So I just wanted to clear up any confusion on that. But, Final Fantasy IV. It's fucking amazing. What, did you expect me to go in detail about it? Alright, fine. Anyway, Final Fantasy IV is another one of those quintessential classic Final Fantasy games. And it's up here on the list because I think that its story is really, really fucking good. All the games just fell over here. I think it's really, really good. It has, of course, again, the same tortured heroes. It has just nefarious villains. And it has a story and characters that actually progress throughout the game. The changes that happen to Terra throughout the story are just fantastic. I like these types of games that have progression and have changes happen to the characters, and Final Fantasy IV did that. I haven't played, again, the PSP version, so I don't know what is in the other expansions, like the After Years and things like that, but I can say that Final Fantasy IV in and of itself is really worth playing. If you've never played it, you need to play it. Play every game that I've shown you. Do it. The whole stack fell over. Full disclosure, haven't beaten this game. I was playing it on PS3 and then Lightning happened. I need to reinstall it, I need to restart it, and I need to go back through this beautiful game. Ni no Kuni. Ni no Kuni's beautiful. Even without having played it all the way through, I can tell that this is an amazing adventure that is ahead of me. With the combination of Studio Ghibli's art and, of course, the RPG just mechanics, tropes, game design. I don't know what I want to call it. I sound like a fucking idiot and I ramble sometimes. Combination of Studio Ghibli and RPG equals perfection. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. It's great. If you haven't played this game, you need to. Warning though, I watched Yahtzee's review of this, if you've never watched Yahtzee Zero Punctuation, and ever since he brought up the idea that the little boy's mind has shattered since the death of his mother in that exact moment he is pulled into a fantasy world, ever since he mentioned that, it really fucks with me when playing with this game. Because, like, the idea of this little boy getting pulled into a fantasy world just as his mother dies, he might be crazy, I don't know, but it's a beautiful adventure. And no, that's not a spoiler. His mother dies at the beginning of the game. It's not a spoiler, okay? That shit's gonna happen. You've got like 80 hours of awesome RPG wonderful ahead of you. Play Ni no Kuni, or I will find you, and I will hurt you. Ni no Kuni, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, Ni no Kuni is in the top 5. I haven't been counting these, but obviously there's 30 of them, and you can count as you go along. This one is number 4. You guys know what number 1 is, and I'll get to it in a minute. This is number 4. And I've often said that if number 1 wasn't my favorite game of all time, this one would be. And that's because this game is amazing. And I'm disappointed that this game is only accessible to people that have a Wii. And that game is Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles follows the story of Shulk and friends as they battle across a fantasy world that takes place on 2 great titans, the Bionis and the Mechonis. The thing I like about Xenoblade Chronicles is not just how huge it is. It's massive for a Wii game. It's insane how big this world is. And the combat itself reminds me of Final Fantasy XII. But it's also the story. And the lengths the story goes to completely screw with your perception of who is good, who is evil, and what is reality. Xenoblade Chronicles stands the test of time in my opinion. It'll go down as one of the best RPGs ever made because it is one of the best RPGs ever made. If you have an opportunity to play Xenoblade Chronicles, I implore you to do so. And I know that my buddy Kevin recently got himself one of those new 3DSs. Kevin, play Xenoblade Chronicles. Please. I love this game. I love this story. I really want you to play it too. And any of you out there who have never gotten to play this game, I want you to be able to play it too. I don't care if you have to hack this shit and download an emulator on PC. Please play Xenoblade Chronicles. It's worth it. It's a fantastic game. Next up are the top 3. What are my top 3 RPGs? You guys know what number 1 is. You know it's coming. You can read me like a book at this point. But what are the top 3? Let's find out. I'm going to be holding up a collection case, but the game that I'm talking about is number 6. You guys already know what game it is. Final Fantasy VI. While this is the Final Fantasy anthology that comes with 5 and 6, I'm not talking about 5. 5 is a great game, so it gets an honorable mention here. But 6 is number 3. Final Fantasy VI is one of the best fucking RPGs ever made. One of the last RPGs made by Square Enix on the SNES. And it's wonderful. The things they were able to pull off with this game, not only from the story standpoint, but the design and technical standpoint, is impressive. I don't think any of you out there will ever forget the first time that you popped this game in and you saw that impressive intro of the Magitech mechs running through the snow towards the city where the Esper was. I don't think any of you will ever forget the opera scene, or the moment when Kefka, one of the few villains in Final Fantasy history to achieve his dark goals, was able to destroy the world. Final Fantasy VI is amazing. It's perfect. And it is deserving of a place not only in your library and your memory, but your heart. Because this is one of the best fucking games you'll ever play. One of the best RPGs you will ever play. Hands down. Final Fantasy VI in my mind is only surpassed by one other game. One other game that in my opinion is, again, perfect. And while I know this is another dual case, I'm talking about Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is the best RPG ever made. While I know there's one more entry, I really can't justify saying that my favorite game is better than Chrono Trigger. While it is going to be the last thing I talk about on this list, Chrono Trigger is the best RPG ever made. The journey of Chrono and his friends to stop this evil, tyrannical monster named Lavos is perfect. The story, the music, the graphics, the combat, all of these things, ahead of their time and ageless as gaming progressed. If you've never played Chrono Trigger, I really can't help but ask, what is wrong with you? I can understand if you're not a fan of RPGs, and I can understand if you can't get a copy of it. But if you have the opportunity, you need to play this game. It's filled with twists, it's filled with revelations, and it's filled with the beautiful art of Akira Toriyama once again. If you're playing this version, of course, or any other versions. I think the SNES one was the one that didn't have the art style. Either way, Chrono Trigger is perfection. And it's the best fucking RPG ever made. So if you've never played it, I recommend you play it. Because it's fantastic. Anyone who's been watching my channel knows what my favorite game is. I mention it all the time. I go out of my way to bring it up. And that's because this RPG touched me in a way that no other game has. I've made jokes before, like if my house was on fire, the two things I would save is my cat and a copy of this game. But this game is wonderful. And while I will stand fast in the fact that games like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI are the best of the best, I can't help but be biased towards this one. And it is bias. Putting this game at the top of my list means a lot of things. It means I think this game is better than every other RPG I've mentioned, which to some people could be completely asinine. It means that I think this game has a better story, better combat, better characters. And while I think that, and while you may disagree with that, which is okay, I still love this game. I don't even think I'd have to hold this game up because you guys know which game is in my hand right now. The Legend of Dragoon is my favorite game, and I'm putting it at the top of my list of the top 30 best RPGs of all time. The story of Dart, Shanna, Rose, Albert, Levitz, Hachel, the story of these characters, I left out a few, Maru, Kongal. The story of these characters on their journey, not only to save their kingdom, save their friends, but also save the world, is amazing to me. The rebellion of humans against the tyrannical imperial race of beings known as the Winglies that subjugated all of humanity, that subjugated all of existence with their powerful magics and their cities in the skies. Their laws created just to harm and hinder humans. Their power and their reign over all of existence brought down by 7 dragon knights, the Dragoons, and their leader, Emperor Diaz, and an army of humans fighting all at once at one moment to fight back against this entity, to stop them. And then learning the origin of their power, learning the reason they subjugated everything, learning the reason that they tried to stop the progress of human evolution, learning about the 108th fruit from the divine tree, the god of destruction, and then fighting against that entity, fighting to save all of existence, fighting to deny the will of the creator Soa. I love this game. And if you've never played it, again, all I can do is ask that you do. The game's fantastic. It has its problems. If you want, you can check out Devil Dog Gaming's video and get another perspective on it. I'll put his review in the description below. But for me, this game's amazing. And it's at the top of my list of the top 30 RPGs of all time. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope that my ramblings weren't too terrible. I hope the moments I got tongue-tied weren't too awful. I really do request, though, if I missed an RPG, if you think something belongs on here, Super Mario and the 7 Stars, or, some other game I maybe haven't even heard of, put it in the comments below. If you want to make your own list and put it in the comments below of your top RPGs, go ahead and throw that down there. And again, if you want, make your own video and talk about your favorite RPGs, and I'll check it out. Because I love RPGs. For everybody out there who's like, oh, Brett just plays a bunch of shooters. It's not true. And this video is proof of that. I love role-playing games. I love story. I love strategy. I love tactics. I love that turn-based combat. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button like it owes you money. If you didn't enjoy the video, if you hate me, if you think I got a dirty ass, dislike that video. Thank you for watching, and may the spirits guide you.